So how to embed enterprise into business classrooms. I don't claim to have the winning formula. These are just my ideas, things that I have tried. Please share what you have tried. I think starting with a vision, where you want to go. Cool. Oh, again, yeah, you can go all the way to the fourth one. Cool, thank you. Creating real-world based projects, actively reflecting, and mapping back to the unit. So I'm going to talk about these 4 different areas. Yes, please, Dave. So the first one, developing the vision. So you have to know, where is it you want to go? Where do you see your classroom going? What do you want happening in your class? So choose a model for how you see it running. Well, this is what I've done anyway. And to help me, I look at what's happening in the real world and how can I try and replicate that back in my classroom. Okay. The second one is learner vision. So picturing that competence. What would a competent learner look like? My students at the end of the class, what do I want them to behave like, be able to do, speak like? Okay? Ooh, yep, thanks. So here's an example that you might run with your Cert 2 business year 10s. You might choose to operate it as an actual business enterprise. That's fun. I find it to be fun. So your class, how is your class actually going to run? So for me, I might do it whereas my class is going to be, you could say, a hairdressing business, a beauty business, coffee shop, what have you. I, for one example, have chosen a project management company business. I chose myself to be the CEO, wear a little name badge. My students, I have them running as actual employees in the business. I get them working in little units, little business teams. They all get their own specific roles, so you might have a marketing director amongst your team, you might have a communications director, and various other roles, okay? And as you change up the different projects through the course of the program, you get to rotate each of the students around so they get to experience those different roles. So you're running it essentially like a little business within your school, within your classroom. Okay? I'm thinking, okay, learn a vision. What do I want my students to be able to achieve, to look like, to sound like? And I'm picturing in my head. So I've got to think of the job that they'd be in. So thinking of them in a business environment. So I want them to be onto it. I want them to be thinkers. I want them to be able to think. I want them to be able to carry out tasks. For example, answering the phone. These are a bit basic, but anyway. Answering the phone competently, greeting customers as they come in, being able to communicate with their colleagues, being able to follow up with their colleagues, so letting them know, I actually have finished this task, not just buggering off at the end of the day without letting anyone know where they're at. Those sorts of things. Creating basic Word docs. I'm thinking trying to create efficient onto-it learners, basically. Okay. Step 2, create real-world projects. So one kind of process I use to try and achieve that is breaking down the functions of the job or the business. Okay, so if it's a project management company or a hairdressing company, what are the different functions that are having to be done in that actual organisation, and then you can create little projects around those. Choose the functions of the job that lend themselves to the resources that you have, your skills, interests, the students' skills and interests. So pick suitable projects that are actually going to work with you, and then you want to flesh them out. Okay, and that's where it can get fun and exciting. You want to consider, as you're scoping it, planning, brainstorming, the relevance to the units of. So have a look at all your units of competencies. So you've got an overview, right? I know somewhere in there I've got to cover actually taking phone messages, actually organising a meeting, or actually writing a Word document, or putting pictures into a document. So have that in the back of your head as you're trying to plan the projects and choose the projects that you're going to do. Okay. Clustering, 2 birds with 1 stone. You can group a lot of different requirements under one project, for example. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And again, try to think of real job skills. What are they actually going to have to do in the workplace? Because then it makes it more practical, more realistic, more beneficial, all of those reasons. And it's going to make it more engaging for the students. Yes, please, Dave. Back to our example, so of step 2, how we'd carry that out. So I chose the project management business, so that I figure is a company, and what we do is we do little projects. We plan and implement and review actual projects. So it gives you the freedom of a project being anything. It could be anything. Project management, event management. So some areas, and these are just ideas, do it however you feel. I've thought, okay, well, how does it start? They've got to apply for a job first. Got to be interviewed for a job. So how does that process happen? Right, they've got to write a resume. They've got to apply for the job. They've got to interview for the job. Someone's got to conduct the interview. Okay, getting some ideas. Induction and training. They've got to go through an induction process, got to be trained in new skills. This might be an opportunity here for me to do some actual, what do you call that, chalk and talk, actual teaching on areas. Inductions include work health and safety procedures, learning about participating in general work procedures like meetings, job appraisals, filling out leave forms, all of those sorts of things. And so you can start to think, right, can I make these into little activities, little projects in my class? So for example, this one, what I did here, I made my students write the job advertisement. I said, okay, we're going to create our own business. Let's run this like a business. You guys, I'm the CEO, you guys are the workers. So they created the job advert. Obviously, there's learning that goes in before this, research, comparing, looking at existing adverts. They wrote their advert. I wanted it to be kind of like real world, so I was like, let's throw it up on, what's that thing called? Gumtree. Is it called Gumtree? I keep getting it confused with Google. Gumtree. Yeah, Gumtree. So they wrote a job advert, actually put it up on Gumtree, and they felt by using the technology, using something that people are going to be interacting with. And then we ran into the problem of other people actually applying for their jobs. Yeah. So then they had to do resume writing, so they had to write their own resume. So I had to do learning and showing them what's a good resume. Depending on the level of students, you can leave it straight to them, write their own resume, or you can scaffold the activity where you like give them a template of a resume and only add in the bits. Okay, so you scaffold it at the level of your students. So they had to write their resume, they had to go online and submit their resume. So I broke them up into 2 different teams, right? The one who was advertising the job and the ones that were applying for the job. And we all got a turn at it. We swapped it over. So then they received applications and they were like, oh, and we've got these foreign applications. Who's this person? Oh, and they were a bit excited. And then they actually had to send letters like, thank you. Your application, you have been invited to participate in an interview, and I'm like, make it really formal, typos, fix it up, no way, go away. And so then they had to send out these letters to their classmates, organise the interviews, actually had to run the interviews, so I'm teaching before that happens, I'm teaching interview application techniques. So then we had this whole interview, they had a panel there, they went in, someone had to stand in the reception and greet them as if they were a receptionist and ask them sit down, ask them if they want a glass of water. So I'm trying to run it like, you know, as an actual workplace, keep it real, treat them like employees, not like little kids, make them feel they have some accountability, some responsibility, make it feel real. They came in, they were nervous, they had to do their interviews, they were being recorded for their interviews, they did that whole process. I made them reflect on it afterwards, both people, the interview panel and the people being interviewed, and then they swapped over. Then they had to do, they were selected for the job, so they had to write successful or not successful letters, and they had to be formal, they had to be delivered to the students. Yeah. So they had to do all of that sort of stuff, and they found it to be quite fun. Induction, they even had to do this. So we again, there's the learning processes that go on before it, but what eventuated was they wrote their own induction manual. I love looking at my kids' work. Oh, look at this, look what they've created. They wrote their own induction manual, then they had to conduct the induction, so they actually had to walk them through, give them a health and safety tour of everything, act all professional, all of that same sort of stuff. Yeah, this one here I think you could bring in if you did like job appraisals, you could make it a regular thing where they sit down and someone in their team appraises the other. And
you actually give KPIs with the kids.
Yeah, cool. And then you can use it as a reflective process, so do a pre, a middle and a post and see how they're changing. You could put little professional development goals like you would in the real workplace at each of those sessions and then see how they've developed since then. Okay, where else? Another broad area is obviously doing the functions of what the job are. So a project management company or hairdressing company, whatever it is, look at the different functions and then you can work on little projects around that. I think I have a slide where I'll talk about examples of actual job functions we did a little bit later too. Yeah. Oh, thank you. So continuing on with that example, so you're fleshing. You're coming up with possible job functions, you're breaking down, the job functions, then you're choosing the ones that are suitable for you. So I just said, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, and then I wanted to flesh them out. So here's just some tips on how you could do that. So always just keep it in your head, trying to keep it real, trying to keep it like a real workplace, treating them like actual employees. So you give them that responsibility, give them the recognition too when they step up and for the cool things that they do. Enable external interactions. This helps to make it feel more real. It's more make-believe if we're just doing it in the classroom. But if you can organise opportunities for them to actually have to interact with real stakeholders, real clients, real people out there, then for them it's going to seem that much more like a real experience. Set these expectations for professionalism and accountability. So don't treat them as just high school students. Little side note, with the trainees that I deal with, my trainees out in the workplace, the biggest difference they comment between school and the workplace is at school they're treated like kids. In the workplace they're treated like adults, like colleagues, like part of the team. They're spoken to differently, they're treated differently. A lot of my trainees, once they get a taste of working out there in the traineeship, they're like, oh, school is so immature. Yeah. Yeah?
One of the things that I do to, make sure that they are treated professionally is they can eat and drink and go to the toilet. They have a lanyard with their business card attached.
Yeah.
So they don't need to ask. And the other thing too is, only sort of recent, is I use Monopoly money or Pay money.
Yeah.
And when they hand in their unit on time,
Yes.
they get 50.
Yes.
If they hand it in early, they get an extra 20.
Yeah.
And if it's actually, if it doesn't have any errors, etc.,
Yeah.
then they get an extra 10. So it is on all levels.
Yeah.
It's not just for those who hand it in and it's brilliant.
Yeah.
They can just get $50.
Yeah.
So at the end of the term, they then go into a draw so that there's that college, collegiality going and warm fuzzy, and then they don't get a bottle of wine, no. They do get a voucher to the movies or Macca's.
Cool.
So I have that sort of thing.
Awesome.
Just like we do in our own school or workplace.
Cool. Reminds me of an example I did back in New Zealand. I'd give them the money for completing tasks. And at the end of the session, however, we ran an auction. So I bought a whole lot of goodies and then they could auction for all the different things with all the money that they collated. Oh, you should have seen them. They had a great time. Yeah. Cool. But yeah, you can tie that in. If you might want to bring in the financial element of that, and they might have to record incomings, outgoings, or you might want to do a payroll side of it. You could bring in lots of different things around that activity.
And minutes, general meetings.
Yeah,
once a month.
Yeah.
Morning, please.
Oh, cool. I did one of those activities too. My students had to organise the morning tea, And so they actually had money, my money, and they had to put a proposal to me what they were going to buy. They had to go up to the bakery and then they had to choose things, and they're kind of a little bit over budget, so they had to work around that, and they had to bring back receipts and all of those sorts of things, put in for, submit their receipts against the forms and all of that. But even just something simple like that, they felt a bit more responsible. Okay, other tips. Always encourage students to be creative and entrepreneurial and give them those opportunities to create, to be innovative and to have real business interactions. Always come back to asking yourself, how can I keep it real world? What can I do to give them real world opportunities and experiences? How can I get them interacting like enterprising individuals? Cool. Here is an example of possible projects. So I've already talked about how I did the application, the job application one and the training one there. Okay, so my company was a project management company, so around planning projects, promoting projects and implementing. An example that we did there was we had the students plan to do a fundraiser event. Okay, it could be a fundraiser or it could be promoting awareness, what have you. My students went with fundraiser. In the end, they decided to do a sausage sizzle, and they wanted to raise $300 and give that to the Salvation Army. So we broke it all down. One of my particular units was a project management unit, so we looked at the whole documentation of it, Gantt charts, which is not probably what you would do in your class. But they had to write a project design brief and all of that. They had to create little flyers. They had to get permission from the principals. From the principal, they had to approach the charity. So they had to interact with all these other different stakeholders. They had to put a budget together for purchasing the sausage sizzles. They had to delegate tasks and roles. Health and safety around the equipment setting up, the hygiene. So just one project like that covers so many things, the communication, the documentation, the marketing, the interaction, all of it, finances, health and safety, all of that can be tied into a simple project like that, okay? And again, they had a great time and they felt cool with all the money that they'd managed to fundraise. Here are just some examples of the work from that. So here's the job advert. So initially, we had them pretend that they were just Myers and Harvey Norman. So this is one of the job adverts that they put up on Gumtree. This is the induction booklet that they created. So here's their little organisational chart. That's me up here. And then they went into breaking down the different roles. So they have to understand what a marketing director does, etc., etc. This is a big page booklet, and these are one of these things that I sit there thinking, oh, my kids are so clever. So you can see how just creating something like that or like that meets the requirements of a lot of the Cert 2 business units of competencies. Easy, but it's more fun and engaging. Yeah, it's real stuff. Okay, and you can always bring it back to the real world and what they're going to have to do, because they're going to have to start a job one day and go through an induction process. They're going to actually have to apply for work one day. They're going to have to write quality resumes. Thanks, Dave. This is about one of the projects that I had them doing, so the barbecue fundraiser. So they created the whole book. See, and I just even love the presentation. Here's their whole contents page. Just one of the things, so her charter form. So scoping it out, basically, what was their objective, what was their budget, their assumptions, their constraints, etc., etc. Yep, next page. This was one of their budget that they'd put together. This is them sitting in there in their business group. So you made the point where they have to have meetings, so I'd make them have their regular meetings. They'd have a different person take the minutes, chair the meeting, all of those, and you can keep all of those as examples for meeting the requirements of your units. Oh, can we go back one more? Sorry. What else? Oh, okay. So I was always just thinking, oh my gosh, they're not in the workplace. A lot of them don't have work experience. And I've got to put out these competent learners. I want them actually to be competent, not just have a piece of paper. I want them to be capable kids. Like, yes. So I was like, how can I get these real world experiences in? So you have to be creative and look out and try and get networks and those sorts of things. So project management was a biggie that I was trying to teach with these students. A little bit higher than the Cert 2 level, however, this particular course was. So I thought, what can I do? So I got in touch with the company Try Events, who organised the HBF Fun Run. Okay, I asked them, how can my students be involved in this? They ended up, I had them volunteer in the project, in the event, HBF Fun Run, so they could get there on the ground and see for themselves what it looks like, what happens. Before that, they had to study at the different stages, the planning. They had an interview with the guy. He came and spoke to them, teach them all about event management, the different factors of it. So then they could go down there and see it for themselves and be involved in it. And this was all the groundwork to help them to then go back and plan their own projects, their own events. Okay. So again, it's engaging, it's real world, it's seeing, it's interacting with actual companies, what actual companies do, and they loved it. So did I. Yeah, next slide, thanks. So this is the day he came to talk to them. So Try Events actually organise a whole lot of events, the Mud Rush, the Neon Run, a lot of different things. So the students really got value out of interacting with him. So they had to keep it all formal. They had to formally email, they draft their emails to me first, then they send them off to him, and they had to invite him formally to come to us. They had to organise the morning tea for him there that day. So that was the time where they went up with the money and the budget and bought the food and got it all ready. They had to induct him on the safety before he came in. So all of that, keep it all legit, proper experiences. And one of my trainees, sorry, my students there at the Fun Run again. Okay, well, we've got to make it fast. Talk too much. Step 3, actively reflect. Always looking back at what you're doing. Is this model, your business classroom, your project, how you intend to run it? Is it actually replicating the real world and developing real job skills that's going to make it beneficial for your learners? It's going to make them competent and that they're going to be walking out the door there with actual job skills. Okay. How to engage students, stimulating their thought, getting them involved, interacting with external people as much as you can. Yep. And then the last step is mapping it back so that you know that you've covered what you're meant to have covered. Of course you would have, and it would have been fun, but just to keep everyone happy, come back to it and of course map against your units of competencies. This awesome project covers a million things. So yeah, 2 birds with 1 stone. As we've seen, you can cluster the units. And keeping in mind the sufficiency of the learning and the practice opportunities. I didn't just throw my kids into, okay, now you have to just plan this and run this whole project. There's a whole lot of learning opportunities, practice before they got left on their own, which you as teachers already know and do with your students. Yeah. Okay, if you are stuck with using your RTO's material and you don't have the flexibility to write your own amazing projects, maybe go to them and ask them, look, this is what we do want to do. If I plan it and I map it and show you how it meets all of the requirements, then perhaps they might let you have that freedom to do it that way. If they don't, then you've got to get creative and think, now how can you take their existing learning and assessment resources and put that into the kind of model that we've talked about today? How could you do that? Okay, so still maintaining that the students have to behave as if it's a formal business interaction and enterprise, and still maintaining that they interact with external clients and stakeholders, and giving them that chance to be creative and to expand themselves and to show off their skills. That's what makes it fun.